Ethan and Lydia's love story is so touching that it moved countless people to tears. A young and beautiful woman with a broken home, a poor girl. A young and promising father with money and a noble mother. On the day when public opinion was flying all over the sky, I filed for divorce. Ethan didn't take it seriously and looked at me with a smile. Don't be impulsive. Our child is just 1 month old. Do you want him to be fatherless since childhood? I froze there for a long time and gave up completely. He was the one who made the mistake, but made others repent. Part 1. The video of Ethan and Lydia quickly became a hot search. In the video uploaded by netizens, Ethan accompanied Lydia to play all the projects in the amusement park. The two looked at each other with smiles in their eyes, and they looked very compatible. Finally, the girl who uploaded the video also appeared in the photo. Family. I couldn't help but film them. They are so well matched. They look like the male and female protagonists in a novel. However, I didn't ask them when I uploaded it, so I'm not sure if they agree. If the person concerned sees it online, you are welcome to claim the video. This video suddenly became popular. Countless people gave their blessings below. When I saw it, this video was already the #1 hot search. Before I could ask the public relations to react, Ethan's secretary called me first. When I answered the phone, she was crying on the other end of the phone. Miss Isabel, I'm really sorry. I don't know how things turned out like this. Yesterday was my birthday, and I just wanted to find someone to accompany me to the amusement park. Mr. Ethan happened to be free, so I asked him to go with me, but I really don't know how someone filmed it, and people even mistaken us for a couple. You are very proud of being mistaken for a couple, right? I really wanted to ask this question, but I held back and didn't say it in the end. I will discuss this matter with Ethan and let the public relations department handle it. You don't have to worry about it. After hanging up the phone, I almost pinched my hand until it bled. Ethan has become less interested in marriage, which I have always noticed. But I always think that every relationship will go from vigorous to dull, so I didn't guess otherwise. But now, the facts slapped me in the face. Ethan has someone else outside. Even if I don't want to believe it, I have to believe it. I thought about it again and made a phone call. Please take some photos for me. Part 2. When I got home, Ethan's mother was waiting for me in the living room. Isabel, you are finally back. Tell me, how did Ethan's incident end up on the internet? I heard about it from my sisters when we were playing mahjong together. Mom, don't worry. I took a deep breath. We will handle this matter. That's good, that's good. Ethan's mother breathed a sigh of relief. You two have finally come to this point today. You can't divorce no matter what. This must be a misunderstanding. Ethan is not that kind of person. As we talked, Ethan's mother sighed. Life is getting better and better. How can people not know how to be content? Ethan's mother stood up. Isabel, I'll go upstairs to see the child first. Mom. I called her. In fact, you should also know what Ethan did, right? Ethan's mother turned her head. In a trance, the woman standing in front of me overlapped with the one who accused me of marrying above her station. She is still the same woman, but many things are different. It has been 6 years. No matter how comfortable life is, people still can't avoid aging. In addition, she looked very upset and emotional, so she looked much more haggard than usual. She approached me. Isabel, you should beat and scold him, but don't divorce Ethan. Part 3. I know what Ethan's mother wants to say. Since ancient times, elders have always advised reconciliation rather than separation. I slowly pulled my hand out. Mom, you know, I can't tolerate any sand in my eyes. But your child is still young? Oliver is just 1 month old, such a young child. Our child is still young, what does it mean? I put the facts on the table. It means that Ethan was hanging out with the secretary when I was pregnant. You can't deny it, right? Ethan's mother stopped talking. I went upstairs, and the confinement nanny was guarding the child. I talked to her and told her that she could go home today. Oliver's full moon banquet was held 2 days ago, and Ethan looked tired at that time. I always thought it was because he had a busy schedule recently. Now that I think about it, maybe it was because he spent too much energy on his secretary, or maybe he was just impatient, so he had that expression. Now that everything is in front of me, I have to think about many things in a different way. Oliver was sleeping soundly, and I just kept looking at him. I don't know how long it took. Ethan walked in. Part 4. Isabel, what are you doing sitting here? Why don't you let the confinement nanny watch over you? He hugged me from behind, and I stood there stiffly. Ethan saw that I had no intention of talking to him, so he stopped making trouble and touched the child's face. At this moment, Oliver woke up and howled twice. Ethan smiled and picked him up, coaxing him patiently. There was only a small gap in the curtains in the room, and the light shone in, but the room was still very dark. I turned on the dim night light. Ethan walked around the room with the child in his arms, with a very gentle smile on his face, coaxing him patiently. After a while, the child stopped crying and lay quietly in Ethan's arms, looking around curiously. If it was before the incident between Ethan and the secretary broke out, I would have felt very happy to see such a scene. After all, it was not easy for Ethan and I to come this far. We met when we were young and were each other's first love. At that time, my family suddenly went bankrupt, and the gap between my family background and Ethan's widened, which was strongly opposed by his mother. Later, we survived everything, finally got everyone to agree, and finally got married. Just like all stories, we met, got to know each other, fell in love, and finally got together. But no one told me that marriage is the beginning of a new story. Is there really nothing between you and that secretary? I looked at Ethan, who was holding the child. Why do you say this in front of the child? Ethan looked unhappy. He doesn't understand. You can't say that either. You have to be very careful when talking in front of the child. Ethan turned his head to the side and stopped looking at me. Really? I stared at Ethan. Then can you tell me why you never responded to me directly, but kept making excuses? Why? Ethan, can you give me an answer? What answer do you want? Ethan suddenly laughed. Isabel, why are you so suspicious recently? Are you a little nervous? Do you want to see a psychologist? You don't have postpartum depression, do you? I was very close to Ethan, so close that I could hear his breathing. Ethan, am I overly nervous, or are you overly nervous? Part 5. Ethan coaxed Oliver to sleep, put him in the crib, and then took me out to talk. Isabel. He put his hands on my shoulders. Don't be so suspicious, okay? Give me some trust. Our 2 children have just been born, and our happy life is still ahead. Why do you doubt me? Do you know that many times, the relationship between husband and wife begins to break down, starting with suspicion? I stood there, saying nothing. Ethan is still as graceful and good at controlling people as before. I still remember that at the beginning, his mother despised my family's bankruptcy and planned to cancel the engagement between him and me. Ethan was almost driven crazy by his mother. No matter how he begged, his mother would not agree to let him marry me. At that time, he loved me so much that he threatened to die. He also planned to leave me and move to another city to develop. But I knew very well that this was impossible. Their family was big and he was the only child. He couldn't leave or give up. I advised Ethan not to be so impulsive, think about it carefully, and solve the problem peacefully. But Ethan misunderstood my meaning, thinking that I didn't want to fight, wanted to accept the reality, and parted ways with him. After misunderstanding my attitude, he didn't even dare to question me, but went out to drink alone. When I went to find him, he still didn't have the courage to ask what my attitude was, fearing that I really wanted to break up with him as he thought. Later, Ethan drank more and more, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Why? Isabel? Why do you want to give up on me? Let's try again, okay? As long as we keep insisting on our ideas, my mother will agree one day. I know this is unfair to you, but I really don't want to be separated from you. Later, he simply stopped escaping and took me to make an appointment with his mother. In the very quiet box, he cried so hard that he couldn't even speak. I still don't understand, Mom, do you love money so much? You know that I only like Isabel in my life, but why do you force me to marry someone else? Do you have to drive me crazy to be happy? Ethan's mother was silent and turned away. Part 6. Mom, you can't be like this. When Isabel's family was rich, our 2 families got engaged. But now, why are you so anxious to ask us to cancel the engagement when something happened to her family? I don't want to be a snobbish person. You can do this, but I can't. I'm afraid that people will stab me in the back for the rest of my life. I like Isabel as a person, not her family or her family background. Mom, if you insist on forcing me, then be prepared to never see your son again in this life. Ethan's mother was originally very tough and never nodded. Later, she heard Ethan threatening to commit suicide, and she broke down. I don't want to either, Ethan. I'm not such a snobbish person. But you have to think about it. Your father doesn't have only you as a son. He has other women, other sons, and other families outside. You keep saying you want to die and force me with these words, but what do you want me to do? Your father has always thought that you are weak, and he wants you to marry a girl from a wealthy family. Only in this way will he let you inherit the family business. What can I do? Am I going to watch you go down the wrong path and ruin your future for the rest of your life because of a woman? Ethan's mother cried bitterly. She complained so much that I almost took the initiative to persuade Ethan to break up with me. But Ethan never nodded, he insisted on being with me. In the end, Ethan pulled me out of the box and went to the house we rented outside. Half a month later, Ethan's mother asked the housekeeper to invite him back, saying that she agreed to our marriage. Since then, he has succeeded in his struggle. I thought about it again and again, but I was still unwilling to give up. I have seen how Ethan loves me, so I can naturally tell whether he loves me or not. He used to love me purely and passionately. So, even if he didn't love me at all later, I could feel it. He really loved me in the past. But where did he go at that time? If the 23-year-old Ethan knew that the 33-year-old Ethan would do this, would he forgive himself? Part 7. Finally, I received a call and an email from the private investigator. On a sunny afternoon, Ethan came back from the company early with a bouquet of flowers in his arms. The weather is so nice today, let's go out for dinner. Ethan handed me the flowers. Isabel, you know what? I had something unexpected today, and when I passed by that little shop on West Street, the owner stopped me and said he hadn't seen me for a long time. I stood there and talked to him for a while, and suddenly I remembered that year long ago when we broke through all obstacles to be together. In order to force my mother to agree, I ran away from home without taking a penny from my family. Back then, we rented a house outside to save money, and we went to eat at a small restaurant every day. The owner greeted us every time he saw us. You can tell me, we were so happy at that time. Ethan's face was full of tenderness. Isabel, think about it carefully, we were still very young at that time, and it was the best age. So many years have passed. If you hadn't told me, I would have almost forgotten it. I took the flowers that Ethan handed to me, beautiful lilies. I like them. Sometimes I think about it and really want to go back to that stage. At that time, I could truly experience the beauty of love. Isabel, why did we have so much to say to each other back then? We stuck together every day and felt that owning each other was like owning the whole world. What about now? I suddenly smiled at Ethan. The store hasn't changed, but what about us? Have we changed? Ethan's smile froze on his face. I threw the flowers into Ethan's arms. I don't like it anymore. Also, take a good look in the mirror and see where the kiss mark on your neck came from. I stared at Ethan's neck. Isn't that disgusting? Ethan's eyes were a little flustered, and he was rubbing his neck randomly. Listen to my explanation, Isabel, it's not what you think. How can there be a kiss mark? It's impossible. I threw a mirror into Ethan's hand. After he finished reading it, he was silent. Look, sometimes you have to put the evidence in front of you before you admit it. Otherwise, you will just keep quibbling and say that I misunderstood. I looked at Ethan carefully. After so many years, the years have not left too many traces on his face, but he looks more and more stable. He is no longer the sincere young man before, but Ethan who is now at ease in everything he does. The small shop he mentioned is in a very remote corner of West Street. He hasn't been there for so many years, why did he pass by it today? That location is not good, no one has ever gone there to do business. Part 8. I asked my question, but Ethan didn't say anything. See, you don't know how to argue. I smiled, and the next second I took out a stack of photos from my bag and threw them at his face. The photos hit Ethan's face and body, and then fell down and scattered all over the floor. On them were all the photos I had just received. There is a very famous haunted house on West Street. The facilities inside are a bit old and not very luxurious, but I heard that the fun is very big, so it is very exciting and very popular among young people. I have always known that Ethan is afraid of ghosts. But today, in order to make his secretary happy, he still accompanied her to the haunted house. These photos not only show today, but also the scenes of him accompanying his secretary to a restaurant for dinner, taking his secretary to a hotel, and going on vacation with his secretary. It turned out that when I was bedridden to protect my pregnancy, he and his secretary were soaking in the hot spring, hugging each other, and doing unspeakable things in the hot spring. It turns out that he missed company meetings again and again because he had to accompany that woman. It turns out that Ethan was restless at the baby's full-month banquet because his secretary kept sending him messages and told him that she sprained her ankle. It turns out that there are so many things behind the scenes. What the private detective can't find out, the paparazzi will naturally send it to me to blackmail. As long as there is money, what can't be found in this world? Take a good look. I heard my voice hoarse. Ethan, are you still not going to admit some things? Listen to me, Isabel. Ethan took my hand. Things are not what you think. Let's talk. Ethan suddenly hugged me, his hands tightened, and the tighter he hugged me, I don't know how to explain it. I know you won't listen to anything I say now, but Isabel, don't be so anxious to convict me, listen to me and tell you, when did it start? I didn't intend to listen to his quibbling. Ethan was silent. Time really does change everything. It turns out that any feelings in the world will not last long. When we got married, you said you would be faithful to each other for life. I did it. What about you, Ethan? You must love that woman very much, right? Amusement parks, haunted houses, things that you thought were childish before, now you play with that woman over and over again. Look, you said that even if two people love each other, they may not be willing to change their personality for another person. 10 years later, you broke your words. No. Listen to me, Ethan said and stopped talking. He suddenly squatted on the ground, holding his head with both hands, and the whole person looked like he had experienced a great change or endured a great pain. Part 9. Don't be like this, Isabel. His tears fell on the ground, drop by drop. Don't interrogate me like a criminal, it shouldn't be like this between us. So you want to say that you didn't cheat, right? That was just an accident. I was under too much pressure and wanted to find a way out. However, I can tell the difference between the people I use to adjust my mood and the people I truly love. Haven't you felt my love over the years? Ethan threw the question back to me. So, are you looking for an excuse for your behavior? I looked down at him. I'm scared. Ethan cried, I saw you go through so much hardship to have a child. I don't dare to come back. I feel it's embarrassing to see you. I'm worried that something will happen to you. I'm really under a lot of pressure. I stood there, completely giving up. Shameless, there is really no limit. For so many years, Ethan and I have always wanted to have a child. But it took us 10 years to realize this normal wish. 5 years ago, Ethan wanted to make some achievements to show his father, so he was busy with the internal structural reform of the branch company. I also accompanied him to work overtime late at night and stayed up all night to catch up with the project. But that day, on the way home, Ethan was distracted while driving, and the car crashed straight into the car in front of him. I had a threatened miscarriage and stayed in bed in the hospital to protect the fetus, but I didn't get what I wanted in the end. It took another 5 years before I got pregnant again. Because of the root cause of the disease, I stayed in bed to protect the fetus later. When the child was born, I heard from my family that Ethan cried while holding the newborn child. I was very moved at the time and believed that he would definitely become a good father in the future. But who would have thought that, in just 2 months, the news of his affair with his female secretary has already reached me. You were under a lot of pressure, so you went to bed with another woman, right? I didn't have any thoughts, she sent me some signals to seduce me. Can you make another excuse? I was shocked by Ethan's shamelessness. Can a dog cheat and blame the meat buns outside for being delicious? Don't let me look down on you, Ethan, you dare not even admit these things. Draw up a divorce agreement for me as soon as possible. If you can't give me a satisfactory amount in terms of property division, I will find the best lawyer and sue the court at the same time, and make that woman spit out all our common property that she spent. I didn't say I wanted a divorce. Ethan staggered and chased me a few steps. How did it come to this point of divorce? I turned around and looked at Ethan like that. He really has a good appearance, so for so many years, there have been beautiful women throwing themselves at him. I still remember the beginning, when we just got married, it was a time of deep love. Ethan changed 3 secretaries in half a year. When asked the reason, he told me very righteously that he felt that his secretary was not right. He always flirted with him when he was doing some work such as serving tea and sorting documents. At that time, I laughed and joked with him. So when you were nervous, you spilled tea on the secretary. Why didn't you just give in? Ethan was angry and annoyed. I was so scared. You know, I couldn't stand her clothes. I told her to go back and change into something less revealing. Then she suddenly rushed towards me and fell into my arms. I was so scared that I quickly grabbed my assistant to block her. Part 10. Since then, we couldn't stop laughing when we talked about this. Ethan replaced the secretary with a male secretary 2 days later. Every time the wives mentioned him, they praised him, saying that Ethan gave me a full sense of security. I also always regarded him as my soulmate. But when did it change like this? Did he start wearing some fancy ties that were more in line with the tastes of young people? Did he start working overtime and staying out all night? Or did he start getting impatient with me? Sometimes I think about it. Maybe I trusted him too much. So I never noticed these clues. When the fact that he cheated on me was exposed, I belatedly connected all these things together to prove the known results. I was so stupid. I said that I would never let down the sincere people, but I still did something I shouldn't have done later. Don't even think about asking me to forgive you. When my mother-in-law learned that Ethan and I had filed for divorce, she knocked on my door at night. Before she spoke, I spoke first. I don't know what you want to say, but if you are here to persuade me, then you don't have to speak. The decision I made will never change. It has always been like this. Ethan should never have any hope. Wrong is wrong. Others can stay faithful, why can't he? Why does he compare himself with those bad people instead of thinking about how he is different from his previous self? But Ethan is right, Isabel, your child is still young. We just held a full-month celebration for the child and then announced our divorce. Others will laugh at us. Ethan made a mistake, but who in the world doesn't make mistakes? Are you really willing to give up the relationship you've had for so many years? Part 11, I sneered. Mom. I paused. This is the last time I'll call you that because you're the child's grandmother. Don't say these meaningless things. You are Ethan's mother, so no matter what you say today, it is from his perspective. And if my mother were still alive, she would definitely feel sorry for her daughter and speak up for him, instead of saying that Ethan made mistakes because he had his own reasons. Ethan's mother left without saying anything else. There was still a photo of me and Ethan on the bedside table. I took the photo out of the frame, tore it up and threw it into the trash can. I just can't tolerate any sand in my eyes. I just want a flawless relationship. If Ethan can't do it, then I will kick him out. Why should I lower my standards for anyone? It's impossible. What I can do, why can't he do it? I took the children back to my apartment. I haven't had time to tell my dad about this. I'm afraid he can't accept it. After my family went bankrupt, my mother suddenly died of illness. My dad was depressed for a long time, and then it took him 3 years to make a comeback. Now, our family is the same as before, on par with the G family. I have the confidence and the ability to be myself. I will not let myself reach the point where I cannot afford to lose. After waiting for 2 days, I still did not receive the divorce draft agreement from Ethan. At this time, Ethan's secretary Lydia suddenly sent me a pregnancy test report and asked me to meet. I thought about it, took the recorder, and went. When I saw Lydia again, she was no longer as glamorous as before, but could not hide her haggardness. Miss Isabel, I know I am sorry for you, I apologize to you, please help me. Ethan is ignoring me now, he asked the company to fire me, but, she hesitated for a long time, tears streaked, looking very pitiful. But, I suddenly found out that I was pregnant. I can't bear to give up this child, the child is innocent. I know that in Ethan's heart I am not as good as you, and I don't ask him to accept me, but I hope you and Ethan can recognize this child. This is also the child of the G family. Lydia knelt on the ground. As long as Miss Isabel recognizes him, I promise that I will go abroad, I will never bother you again, and I will not bother this child. This child will be your own child, Miss Isabel, and he will only recognize you as his mother. I looked at Lydia, wondering what kind of brain circuit she had to say these words. Am I really short of children? Lydia stopped talking. Part 12. It's okay if I don't keep the baby with me. I just want to give birth to this child, Miss Isabel, please help me, I have a cold uterus, it's hard to get pregnant, I promise I will take this child away in the future, I will never disturb the G family. I sent a message to Ethan, I told him I was pregnant, he asked me to abort. He would never let me keep this child, but I couldn't bear it. Lydia said this, I understood. She is a smart person, always knows how to maximize the benefits. I was wondering why she told me this. Now think about it, I understand. She had already found Ethan, but Ethan didn't agree to her giving birth to the child, and even forced her to have an abortion, but she didn't want to. So, she took the risk and came to me, pinning her hopes on me, a soft bun. She thought that as long as she put down her face, maybe I would agree. In this way, her child can also enter the G family and share a part of the G family's property. Or maybe, even if it is not good enough, there is still a chance that this child will be born. As long as the Green Mountains are there is no fear of running out of firewood. As long as this child exists, she will always have a bargaining chip. Whether it is for money or to marry high, she will not give up. But why does she think I am such a weak person? I have never lacked children. Even if I don't have my own children, I will not accept his illegitimate children just to have a stable relationship with Ethan. Impossible. Everything I do is for myself. I never make wedding clothes for others. Do you know who the last person was who took advantage of me? I looked at Lydia. The last person who bullied me was when I was in middle school. There was a girl who relied on the fact that she was the illegitimate daughter of a wealthy family to bully innocent girls in the class, forcing the girl to almost jump off the building. After I stopped her, she used Xiao to try to bully me in front of me. Later, she was expelled from school, discovered by the rich man's first wife, and abandoned by him. Since she had no skills or education, she could only become cheap labor. I never mind showing my temper in front of anyone. I don't suffer any loss. I will never let others take advantage of me. Part 13, in my life, I am least afraid of being threatened by others. I took out the recorder and put it on the table. Lydia, 24 years old, undergraduate. Logically speaking, with your education level, you can't be Ethan's personal secretary because you are not qualified. I know how you climbed up step by step and eventually became his bedmate. I also know that every time you were exposed, even the video of you being secretly recorded at the amusement park, you planned and premeditated to have someone record it and post it online to create momentum. Lydia's expression became more and more ugly. She kept doing some small actions and kept picking at her nails. I watched and found it a little ridiculous. With her mental quality, she threatened me, which was a bit presumptuous. Also, I haven't finished speaking yet. Your parents are both teachers. They have been very strict with you since you were young. They are even a little old-fashioned and don't allow you to wear makeup during school. I don't know whether you did it to piss them off or to release the nature that has been suppressed over the years, but anyway, you did these things. Lydia opened her mouth, but was speechless. Since you dare to bring this to my attention, you should have thought about how to bear the consequences. I have sent the message we just talked about to my assistant, and she should have knocked on your parents' door by now. For me, it was just a matter of looking up some information. It wasn't difficult to find her home address. I didn't even have to look for it, Ethan asked the HR to send it to me. Lydia had just joined the company, and all this was registered. It was very easy to get the information, but Ethan, the cheating dog, thought he was atonement and wanted me to forgive him. How could it be possible? This only makes me despise him even more and think he is a coward. Are you crazy? Isabel. Why do you expose this matter in front of my parents? How do you want me to behave in the future? Lydia acted like a madman and threw the coffee that neither of us had moved on the ground. Do you know that my family lives in the school staff quarters? If you find someone to cause trouble, how can my parents face everyone? You are so vicious. No wonder your husband cheated on me. Who can stand someone like you? I slapped Lydia in the face. If you dare to mess with me, you must be prepared to bear the consequences. I never mess with people, but I am not afraid of trouble. If she dares to make a fuss online and in front of me, I will follow her path and make a fuss with her parents. I stood up, carrying my bag. I have to say, I look down on people like you, no matter what the reason is for you to be the third party. Knowing that what you are doing is not honorable, you still come to provoke me, which only makes me feel more disgusted. Part 14. Lydia picked up the phone. I clearly saw that one call after another came in, but she didn't answer any of them. It must be your parents calling, don't you want to answer it? If you don't abort the baby within 3 days, I will do more than just organize some photos and send them to your parents. You can post the story online and receive praise from all sides. I can also expose your true face and let everyone see your despicable methods. I will ruin your reputation. I said calmly and turned to leave. I was sitting in the car when I suddenly received a call from Ethan's mother. Her voice was sharp and her words were incoherent. Isabel, can you come over here? I beg you, I can't handle it well. I called Ethan, but he never answered. I arrived at the hospital and realized how dramatic the situation was. Ethan's father has seldom come home recently, saying that he is very busy. Although Ethan's mother doesn't believe it, she doesn't dare to doubt it. Just today, she received a call from someone who claimed to be her husband's lover. Ethan's father had a child outside, and the child had a birthday today and called him Dad at the birthday party. It's funny, because of this reason, Ethan's father was very excited and had a stroke. The lover was afraid that it would be difficult to explain if someone died in her home, so he called Ethan's mother and asked her, the original wife, to handle it. Ethan's mother talked to me intermittently, and suddenly burst into tears. How could he do this to me? How could he do this? He's already so old, and he still has a child with another woman. He wants me to die, it's so shameful. Ethan's father was lying on the hospital bed. He woke up for a moment, kept gesturing with his hands, and spoke stutteringly, one word at a time. Lawyer, lawyer. That kid calls me Dad. I want to leave him some money, lawyer, money. My mother-in-law's face suddenly changed and she moved forward. What did you say? What did I ask you? Say it again. Then, various instruments began to sound. The doctor ran into the ward and said, start resuscitation. Part 15. No thanks. Ethan's mother said, let's give up. Mrs. G? He's so old now, we don't want to bother him anymore. He's going to die sooner or later anyway. I want my husband to suffer less, I hope you understand. Ethan's mother became calmer, we give up treatment. As she said that, she went to pull out the oxygen tube of Ethan's father. Mom. Ethan ran in and held his mother's hand. What are you doing? Dad might still be alive if he is rescued. Ethan's mother slapped him in the face. Get out of here. As she said that, she slapped Ethan again. Who told you to cheat? Why did you cheat? Why do you want to learn to cheat if you don't want to learn good things? Family members, please be quiet. Doctors and nurses gathered in the ward and began to advise. At this moment, the curve of the medical instrument returned to a straight line, making a beep sound. Ethan's mother suddenly laughed. Retribution. She calmly notified the funeral home and contacted the cremation. Every time Ethan asked a question, she, as a mother, slapped her son. Anyway, it was fun for me to see. When the bodies here had already turned to ashes, the third child finally reacted and came to the G family crying and holding her 1-year-old child, saying that the G family could not mistreat her child and could not give her a penny. The mother-in-law was full of disdain, and Ethan also knew how to protect his own things. He hired a very professional team of lawyers and was on standby at the G family's old house at any time. The woman cried and screamed, the child was crying too, and the mother-in-law just stood there. How could our old G have such a young child? We have a very good relationship, and he doesn't have any illegitimate children outside. If you slander him like this again, I will sue him. But this is the child of the G family. If you don't believe it, we can arrange a paternity test. The woman roared. Ethan's mother sneered repeatedly. It's already turned to ashes, what's the point of paternity test? The woman finally gave up and left with the child. Since Ethan and I haven't gone through the divorce process yet, I also stayed in the G family's old house. Because of his parents, Ethan no longer stayed in the old house, no longer came here to beg me every day, but stayed in the company. It was half a month later when the lawyer left, and they finally settled the estate left by the old man of the G family. Ethan inherited all the estate. Part 16. I suddenly felt fortunate that I didn't sign the divorce agreement earlier. At that time, he only had some real estate and shares. Even if I could take away 80% of the money in his name, how much would it be? For the entire G family, it was a drop in the bucket. And now, Ethan has inherited all the estate of his father. Even if I can only get half, it is still a lot of wealth. I can only say that if God wants someone to get rich, he can't stop it. At night, I patiently coaxed the child, but he suddenly started crying. Not long after, we received a call from the police station. Ethan, gone. Lydia went to Ethan again and asked him for money, but Ethan was still merciless. Not only did he refuse, he also asked his bodyguard to drag her to the hospital. Lydia seemed to have some mental illness and took a knife when she went. After being rejected, she stabbed Ethan at the stairs in anger. According to the surveillance video, Ethan staggered and fell headfirst, head on the ground, and died before the ambulance came. Lydia's knife actually stabbed the heart very accurately. Everything is so dramatic. I said I would not forgive a cheating person, but now, I suddenly forgave him. Look how good he is. The inheritance I just got will all belong to me and my child. Ethan's memorial service was held together with his father. In the huge venue, only my mother-in-law really cried for her son, and I forced myself to shed a few tears in a fake way. I looked at the black and white photo. Ethan was smiling in it. This is a photo from a long time ago, which I took from the marriage certificate. This is the age when he was the most prosperous and loved me the most. He should stay at that time forever. If not, then die at that age. The so-called scumbag is the most honest only when he is hung on the wall or placed in a box. I have to admit that this sentence is correct. End of full text.